Hello, my name's Dan. I'll introduce myself. So I currently work for a company called Invika. I guess we're something like a web agency, basically. In my spare time, we work on an open source project called Factor, which is a language server. Does anyone know what a language server is? Fantastic. Okay, well, it's like a back end for Vim or like VS Code that does auto completion and static analysis and stuff like that. And PHP Bench. And I was here, I don't know, 5 years ago, a long time ago, giving a talk about PHP Bench, which I at the time just written, and I'm still kind of maintaining it occasionally. So this is a talk about Go. So why am I giving a talk about Go? So I'm a PHP developer. I've been a PHP developer for about 16 years. I'm also I became a technical team lead. So in Invika, we had a project, came in as Greenfield, and they'd already done the architecture, and they wanted microservices. And wise minds in Invika decided that they had to make a choice on a language to use for microservices. Apparently PHP was good enough. And they had to choose between Rust and Go. And they chose Go. And then said, we've got microservices in our project. Are you going to use Go or PHP? And they were encouraging me to use Go. And I had to make a choice between using Go or PHP. I've never done Go. Nobody in my team had ever done Go. But I saw there's lots of advantages in doing Go. So I just said, okay, we're going to use Go. And I'm going to have to learn Go, I guess, and teach it to everybody. So why Go? It's lightweight. It's a small language. It's a minimal language. It hasn't got many functions. It hasn't got many things in the standard library. So compared to PHP, it's a lot less to fit into your head. It's a compiled language. So how many people use PHP Stan or Psalm or something at work these days? Yeah, and it's fantastic, isn't it? You can sort of run these tools, and it tells you if your code's has got any bugs in it, and it's a similar advantage for a compiler. So compilers will tell you if your code is going to break, and you don't have that guarantee with PHP. Also, it's portable. If you compile to a binary, you don't need another executable to run your script. You can ship a Go application on a Docker image, and it's 50 megabytes, something like that. That's it. That's everything. That's PHP, Nginx, or whatever, in just 50 megabytes. So it's small. It deploys easily. It's made for microservices, and it's fast. And this guy knows that it's fast, and it's much faster than PHP. So what I'm going to do today is try and talk about the differences between PHP and Go, and hopefully clarify what a bit what the language is about, what it can, what it can't do, and we can do this with some live coding. So the first thing we do in any language is write a hello world. So I've got this is a huge screen, by the way, how small everything is. So this is okay. I'll remove that binary. Yes, I'm going to start with nothing. Okay. So first of all, I'm just going to init this project. So this is going to create. If you've got Composer, the first thing you might do in the project is do Composer init. How many people do Composer init when they start the project? That creates your Composer JSON file. It might install some dependencies as well. And Go. Nobody else in this room does Go, right? That's a shame, because I'm going to get stuck frequently. So I'm going to do Go mod init. This is a bit like Composer init. And in general, Go is very helpful. So the errors are useful. It gives you examples. So I've already made a mistake. It says Go mod init example.com/n. Well, that's the package name. So I'm just going to say Go mod init PHPSW. And it creates a new Go mod file. The Go mod file is basically your Composer JSON. this is where your dependencies will be. So it also declares the version of Go and the name of our module. So that's the first thing. So what do we do if we do a hello world in PHP? So we might create something called script PHP, and we get ignore. There's going to be lots of things like this. Just pretend it's not existing, right? It's fine. So we do echo hello world. There we go. And yes, something about something. It's called script PHP. I think this is how we do PHP. Okay, maybe I didn't. Okay. Let's try going back. Something weird's going on here. Also penalty or okay, let's try that again. Yes. Okay. Ignore. Okay, hello world, that was easy, right. So how do we do that in Go? Well, let's try a similar approach. We're going to create a script.go file. Straight away I've got an error. So let's just be naive. Let's say, I don't know, print hello world, which isn't going to work. We can try print ln work like this. And then we can try and run that. So to run something in PHP, from the command line, use PHP and then the script name. To run something in Go, you do go run. And then optionally, what is going on there? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Script.go. Okay, so it's already providing the first hint of what to do. So it's saying expected package found print ln. So every file in Go, in a similar but different way that every PHP file has to start with a PHP tag, every Go file needs to start with a package declaration, say what package it's in. So the package, let's call it script. And we run that, and it says command line arguments is not a main package. And it's, what's it saying? So it's saying that it's not the main package. So maybe we should change that to main. Oops, that was something you've noticed, don't see that. Okay, and that's PHP. What am I doing? Okay, so here's another major difference. So we've got the package main, that bit's fine, but it's saying expected declaration found print ln. In PHP, you can just run a script and it will execute the script from top to bottom. In Go, it will always try and find the main package and the main function. So we always need to declare the main function. And this is like the ingress to your application. This is like the front controller, right? This is index.php. So it's all called main and the function main. And there we have it. That's the hello world in Go. println isn't actually part of, as far as I know, it's not part of the Go standard. Apparently they may well remove println. That doesn't really exist. So what you'll typically use if you need to print something to standard out or standard is the format package. So you can see as soon as I start typing here, I've got some auto completion. By the way, I'm using Vim, but not many people would use Vim. For Go, you're more likely to use GoLand, which is by JetBrains, and it's really good. I have to use Vim for some reason. So you can see as I type, I get auto completion. So these are modules. So modules, PHP has packages, Go has modules, right? So I'm going to use the format package, which is part of the standard library. And then we get a load of stuff. So formats package, and these are things that are in the package. So we get things you might recognize there. So sprintf. Sprintf is sprintf in PHP. It's got some differences actually, but it works in the same way. And we've got printf. So F stands for formatted or something like that. So we say printf hello world. And I can now run that. And there we go. It does the same thing, but in a way that's probably going to be supported in 10 years. Cool. So yeah, not that very fast. So classes versus structs. So Go isn't an object-oriented language. It doesn't support inheritance. It doesn't have various other things which we might expect in an object-oriented language, but it has things which are very similar. And the surprising thing in Go is that when I started Go, I didn't think my knowledge would transfer. But actually, as time went on, I realized that most of my knowledge transferred. All the patterns that I use, all the design patterns that I use, apply to Go. So let's see how that works. So classes versus structs. So let's create a user class or an animal class. I think is the example I used last time. So this, we're going to say, hello, dog, you're a dog, or something like that. So first of all, we don't talk about classes, we talk about types. So Go has a pretty flexible type system. In PHP, you've got integers and booleans and classes, and you've got primitive types and classes. It's a bit weird actually. In Go, you've just got types, and they can be ints, they can be structs, they can be interfaces, they can be all sorts of things. So we're going to call an animal, and we could just make it an int. There we go. Type animal is basically a wrapper around an integer now. But we want a complex type, a type that has properties. So a class that has properties, a type, a struct that has properties, so we can have the animal name. So in PHP, this would be, I don't know, private $name or private string $name. In Go, this is private. The reason it's private is because it's got a little n, right? And a big N, that's public. It's clever. So we've got a name, and I'll talk more about visibility a bit later on, and private and public. There's no protected because there's no inheritance. And we've got type, so type would be dog or something. Okay, and it's saying expected comma. So I'm getting confused. I've been doing a bit of Rust as well. And now it's expecting that one. And it's fine. Oh, yes, because type is a reserved word, and I made this mistake countless times while I was rehearsing this as well. Genre. We can have a genre of animal. That's better, isn't it? Not confusing. Okay, so this is basically a class called animal. Like I say, Go doesn't have inheritance. It has something similar. You can embed stuff in an object. You can embed another struct in an object, but I'm not going to talk about that. But there's no inheritance. This is just a data structure. This is just data. This is a DTO, right? So we can instantiate that, not with new, but we do it with curly brackets, at least for composite types, ones with fields in it. And we can instantiate it with values. So we can say the name is Thor and genre is dog, right? Because this is a compiled language, it's helping you all the time. All this, you're getting diagnostics coming from the language server. So animal is not used. So maybe we should use this somehow. So I'm going to move it above here, and I'm going to pass it to. So like I said, sprintf is like sprintf. So you've got %s. You can use %s, %d, %s, and we can say animal.name. But first of all, we need to assign animal to a variable, right? So let's try that. So in PHP, we'd be going dog equals. That almost works. So that's assigning dog to a variable, assigning the animal to a variable called dog, but it doesn't create the variable. It doesn't declare the variable. So you can declare the variable, which I'm not going to do because I've forgotten. But the cheap way is to use colon equals. So this will initialize and assign the value. So we've got dog, and we can say dog.name. Oops. So let's see if that works. And it does. Hello world Thor. Brilliant. So let's move on to var dump and die. So one of the most frustrating things I find when I'm working on in a new language is how to just var dump die. You want to know there's you don't know anything about the language at all, but you know if you can intercept the code here, if you know this code's been executed, if you can see what the value is at this point, you can sort of grab hold of this thing and you can make sense of it. So how do we do that in Go? Well, first of all, let's create a function. So let's create a function on. Actually, no, let's not create. Let's just panic here. I'm just going to panic. So panic is actually no. Let's do it in a function. So function bark animal. So I'm declaring the function. It's func animal, and it's not going to return a value, or it could return a value. So Go, this is a function that returns a string. In Go, you can also return multiple values, like a tuple, which is very useful for error handling, and we'll see that later. So we can say bark, and let's just return formatted string from bark. So we have printf, we're going to use sprintf. So printf prints, sprintf just returns a formatted value. And yeah, so dog and return. So Go, pretty similar actually. You've got, your normal return statement. You haven't got any semicolons, it's weird. Right. And now we can call bark, or we can do, I don't know, format, print f, or just print bark, dog. And we run that, and it's still working. But right now, we want to see what animal is, or we want to see what that gets here. So imagine this is like 50 call stacks into the program. Panic, well, first of all, it'll interrupt the program. It's actually very similar to an exception. So an exception, if it's thrown in PHP, it will bubble up through the call stack. So if you call a function that calls a function that calls a function that calls a function, the exception will bubble up through that call stack, and you can catch it at any time, right, with a try catch. Panic is similar but different. So panic will also bubble up through the call stack, and you can also recover from a panic. So you can intercept panic and you can handle a panic, but typically you wouldn't do that. You'd only do that in a last resort sort of case. If you want to stop your thread from dying or stop your process from dying, you can recover from panic. You're not intended to. This is the sort of thing you do when you throw a runtime error in PHP. If you can't connect to the database, you just want your app to explode. If it shouldn't happen, just explode the app, because it shouldn't happen, right? There's something catastrophic has happened. We're just going to panic. There's nothing in my app can handle this. But it's useful for debugging as well, because you get stack trace. So you can see that on line 16, we call bark, and bark was called from main on line 12, so you can set that. And it's essential for debugging. But what if we wanted to inspect the structure of the dog? Fortunately, we can do that too. So again, with our format package, we can say printf animal colon, and this is where it gets different from PHP. So we can say %hash or %v actually, v for value probably, and it will sort of var dump the value. It doesn't, however, print the fields, but if you add a magic hash, it does. I don't know why the hash is there. Now you can see that it's, that's more like var dump, actually. So we see that it's the animal struct, that it's got the name for, and the genre dog. So yeah, if you learn nothing else, this will unblock you if you're doing Go. You know, just being able to stop the program and inspect the variables. So var dump and sprintf hash v. Composer versus Go modules. So I've already explained that yeah, Composer has you can use Composer to init the project, and you can use Go to init the project. So a big difference between Go and PHP is that if you start a new PHP project, you need PHP, you need Composer. Probably you'll need PHP unit. If you do benchmarking, you need PHP bench. But Go, actually, it has all of those things built in. It has, I'm not sure if you'd really call it a package manager, but it has one. It has a test runner, and it has a benchmarking, a way to do benchmarks. So that you're pretty much ready to go. If you can type Go, and it's Go, then you can pretty much do anything you like without installing Composer or anything else. So we use Composer to install packages. So if you were paying attention earlier, you can see that we did go mod in it to initialize our module. And I wanted to follow that on by saying you can do go mod get, but then I remembered that you can't do that. You use go get package name, except it's not the package name. It's basically a URL to a GitHub repository in this case. So this is resolvable on the internet. So github.com, the user's name or the organization name, and the Git repository. So there's no packages. I could host Git on my website and type it in here, and you can install packages from my website. So I'm going to install something called Go Spew. So does anyone use var dump? The var dumper composer in, not just var dump, the var dumper package in Symfony. Or anyone use Symfony? Yeah. So you've got dump and dd, and they're really useful ways to inspect to do var dump basically, but fancy var dump. So we're going to install Spew, which is a fancier var dump for Go. So we've installed the package, that's it. It's added it to the Go mod file. So if I do cat go mod, we can see that it's got a package in there. So and it says indirect as well, because we're not using it yet. I wonder if it's going to work now. So we can do spew, yes. So we see we've got the spew module. I'm going to do dump dog. And yeah, if I run that, so that's run, go run. Yeah, so this is actually more like var dump in PHP. So upgrades goes formatting to var dump in PHP basically, so you get the types. But this is really just to what is useful. So I would always go spew if I'm doing a Go application just to get that better var dumping. But also to illustrate how imports work. So we've installed this package. It's like doing a composer require, and then we import the package as if this is like use /go spew // It's like the use statement in PHP, right? This is importing the module spew into this namespace, and like PHP, where you might say as S or var dump. Yeah, we'll do that. That won't work. What we can do is say we can put an alias here to say var dump, and this will from now on be known as the var dump package. So we can say var dump, and yeah, so that works. So again, this is directly transferable to PHP, from PHP. What about structuring our application? So this is probably one of the most important skills in programming, actually, is how do you, if you've got thousands and thousands of little units of code, how do you organize them in a way that makes sense? This is like, it's actually a really big challenge, sort of an underrated one. But we have ways to do it in PHP and other languages, and it's kind of as a hierarchy, right? You sort of create tree structure of your units of code, and you organize them. So of course you can do that in Go, in a similar way that you would in PHP. So let's create an animal package. So I've just created a directory called animal, and I'm going to add dog.go to this. In fact, I'm going to create two directories. I'm going to create animal, canine, and yeah, dog. Just move that to dog. So I'm going to create. So as I said, every file must declare which package it's part of. So let's say package canine, and I don't know. Let's create a function here called bark. Not being very imaginative. Lick. Dog lick things down there. Missing returns. I'm going to return a string. Ooh, okay. So we've got a function in the package canine, and then in our main, or sorry, our script. I'm going to rename this to main actually. So typically, yeah, it makes sense. You've got a main package, you've got a main function. Just put it in a main file. It makes sense. So ignore that. Ignore that. Okay. Why are you doing that? Okay, I'll also restart my language server. So we got our wonderful main function. Now we want to use the function from our package. So what did we call it? We called dog, but we also called it canine, right? So immediately I've got our canine module, and I can probably press return on that. Yeah, and so we've got PHP/southwest/animal/canine. So this is exactly like how you organize your code in PHP, right? With this hierarchy of things. So this might be, yeah, I don't know, you might use a domain here, like invoices, and you might have repositories, and yeah, whatever whatever style you do it, but you can do that in Go. And it's very similar, actually. So you don't have to organize your code in a different way than you would in PHP. Okay, so let's talk quickly about visibility. So I mentioned earlier that we've got little case, lowercase, which means private, and uppercase, which means public. But how does that work? So if we go to function lick, in fact, let's create a little structure. So I don't know, struct A. Well, actually, no, let's do that next. So we've got function lick. I've made it little case, and now there's nothing there. But yeah, obviously within this module, you can call lick. So, and even if I'll get round to showing you how to add methods to classes. But the visibility, even in that case, if you have a private method, it's private to the package. So there's only this concept of package visibility. This is, like, compared to PHP, we don't have that concept, and it's a huge missing feature. I mean, it's complicated to implement, but you've seen it, you use Guzzle, or you use maybe 100 packages, and each time using PHP Storm, or whatever you use, you probably get in the auto-suggest for these hundreds of classes that you're not supposed to use, because they're internal classes to another package. You know, you don't want to use Guzzle's JSON encode, probably, because it's Guzzle's and it might change at any point. But it's there, and you can use it, because PHP offers no protection from people using things from packages. I mean, at least no built-in way. I think there are ways to do it if you look into it, but it's not out of the box. So Go has package-level visibility. So we can say that lick is a public function, but yeah, should have renamed that. Lick is a public function, but yeah, the other one isn't. So that's only exposing the public function, which I think is very, very useful. Okay. So, namespaces versus packages. So we've seen that. Use versus import. We've seen that. Interfaces. So this is. Are there any questions at this point, by the way? Good. Okay. So interfaces. Go has interfaces. Again, it's another thing that both languages share. But Go does it in, as far as I understand, it's a completely opposite way that every other language that has interface uses interfaces. So in Go, it's the consumer of the code that has the interface. So if we've got the PSR log package in PHP, which you've probably used, the logger interface, it's the PSR standard. Yeah, there's this package called PSR, and if you want to make a logger that implements that interface, you have to include the PSR package. You have to depend on it. In Go, if you were to do this in Go, all you need to do is define a class, a struct, that has info and error and debug and these methods that are in that interface. You don't have to explicitly implement this interface, you implicitly implement that interface. And the accepting code need only say, I depend on a class, a struct, that has the info method. And I don't care what you pass in, but if it has an info method, I'm happy. So let's see how that works. So let's create an animal interface. So we've got the animal struct, the animal class. Let's change this into an interface. And interfaces are slightly different in Go. So we can say function. No, we don't. We say bark string. So this defines an interface for a struct that has the method bark. And then we can safely call that, so then we can depend on that interface and we can safely call bark. And if we pass in anything that doesn't implement that, it will not compile. So let's say bark dog. Yeah, we can't instantiate an animal. So let's just go into our dog class and create dog struct. Other way around. Type dog struct. Yeah. So, and then we can say our canine dog. And then, yeah, let's add the name string, semicolon, I think, and genre, I think it was, string. And then it says unknown field name and unknown field genre because they're lowercase. So they're private. So I can't see these fields in that package. So if we make them public by uppercasing them, it should work. We named it to main, so there we go, main.go. When we have main.go, we don't even have to do that, we just do run dot, and it runs. Okay, so the compiler is telling us what to do. So cannot use dog, variable of type dog, as animal in argument to bark, because canine dog does not implement animal, because it's missing the bark method. So as I say, it doesn't matter what you pass in there, as long as it implements the required contract. So dog doesn't have to implement explicitly that thing, it just has to have the method. But how do we actually add methods to structs? So let's try and do this in the intuitive way. So we'd say function bark string. This doesn't work. Let's just return that. I think this would be a lot better, but it does have problems actually, but that doesn't work. So what we need to do is it's more like we attach functions to the struct. How do we attach a struct to the fuct? To the struct. So we say, there's actually another parenthesis here, and we say D, dog. So in Go, this is called a receiver. And if you have a receiver, so it comes before the function name and after the func. If you have a receiver, it's basically this. This receiver is this. But Go developers will use any random letter just here. They don't care. And if you ever get a job as a Go developer, they will hate you if you do this. But I don't care. I do that. That is so much better. So yeah, this is a class in PHP, right? You can call methods on this data structure, right? So we've implemented the method bar, and dog name is undefined because of reasons. There it is, dog name. Dog name still undefined, but I don't believe it. Has no method. Yeah, it doesn't, because we don't have, So the interface doesn't expose those fields. It only exposes the bar. So we only know what the interface has specified, and you can't specify fields in interfaces. You can only specify methods, as far as I know. So there we go. It runs, and yeah, let's use that horrible println. I'm lazy. Yeah, hello world bug. I'm not going to talk about null and nil. Maybe I could quickly. So in PHP, if you instantiate, or at least you used to be able to instantiate a class, and everything in it will be null. And this has always been a bit of a problem. Go does not have this concept. If you've got a string, it's always a string. If you've got an int, it's always an int. So if we create the dog, and we have nothing in it, and we, why did it still bug? Hold on, let's var dump that. Actually, let's use spew. So spew, dump, dog. So by default, there's this concept in Go that there's the empty value. So the empty value for string is an empty string. And if it's an integer, you can probably guess what the value is going to be. 0. So you can never instantiate a struct that has types that are not pointers in an invalid way. Unfortunately, you still have this concept of pointers. And so you still actually have this concept of nil. So a pointer is more like, so this is a piece of memory with a string in it. This is directly like in the memory, this is the string. A pointer is a pointer to, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about memory locations, things like this. But yes, this is a pointer. So this is just a memory location. It says this is the string. You can have many pointers pointed at the same thing. And in PHP, you've got objects. And you have the similar concept there. Every object is a pointer to a data structure. That's why if you've got an object in this part of your code and an object which is the same instance in that part of the code, if you change the object there, it's also going to change it there. If you get an object from the Doctrine Entity Manager and you get an object over there, and you change it here, it changes it there, it changes it everywhere, because they're pointing to the same bit of memory, actually. That's how objects work in PHP. And if you have a pointer in Go, it's the same thing. And a pointer can be nil. So if we now instantiate that, we can see this is nil. And this is a source of panics and bugs in your code. I'm not going to talk about why you need this, because sometimes, especially if you're mapping to a MySQL database where you need null and you've got nullable columns, it's really annoying. So we'll skip that. But that's one of the really fun things you have to find out for yourself. Collections and arrays. So I will wrap this up quickly. So in PHP we have the array, and it's this wonderful thing, isn't it? You can have keys, you can not have keys, you can do loads of stuff. They're amazing. They're lists and they're hash maps or dicts, right? They're this really flexible thing. In Go, you have two things which kind of replace them, I guess. So first of all, you've got a list or a slice. And the way there are loads of ways to create variables. You can read the Go manual and the tour of Go, and it'll tell you everything, but you don't need to know everything. All you need to know is if you want to create a list of ints, you basically use the square brackets like that. So these are the two square brackets that you use for initializing an array in PHP, open and closed. The type that you want a list of, and then, 1, 2, and 3. So, cannot use in literal, why not? As K9 dog, okay, maybe get rid of the dog there. Imported but not used, so Go will also not execute if you've got stuff that shouldn't be there, so get rid of the K9 import. And that's a list. It's you can make lists of fixed length if you know how long a list is going to be. So this is a list of 4 things, and it will just reserve those 4 things in memory. If you do it like this, you can be more flexible. You can, add things. So we can say dog. You can't do this as far as I know, or whatever. I'd say Go's quite a small language. So if we want to add something, we use the append function, and we say append 7 or 6. And we've added another element to the list. If we want to do the other way that we use arrays in PHP, this is a map. So for that, for some reason, we say map, and then we have the same square brackets, but there is the type of the key. So we're going to say this is a key value, the key is a string, the value is an int. And this should be quite similar. So we say foo1, bar2, car3. And let's get rid of that one. And and this is your map, this is your dict. So that's pretty easy, actually. The other cool thing about types is that you can create this as a dedicated type. So this is the type system. So you can say type, foo map, whatever, is this. So then we can say that foo map, is like this, and that's the same. It's the same thing. Except now, you saw we could attach functions to our struct. We can also attach functions to foo map. So foo, right, and returns a string, and returns, I don't know, just returns anything. I mean, you can use obviously the map data. I'm not going to bother. But so now dog has got the method foo. So you can add. I think there's some limitations in what you can do here, but you can sort of extend types with functionality, which is pretty cool. Cool. And just to finish off, last one, I promise. So testing. So we want to add a test for dog. So in Go, it's quite opinionated. You would create a test, dog test.go. This is a convention, so it has to end with _test. The package is going to be the package that you're in, and it's similar to PHP unit. So we say function test. I'm not sure what we've got to test here. Let's test bark. So similar to PHP unit. My ID is giving me a hint about, you can already see what I'm trying to do. So it suggests the arguments that I should have there. So T, testing T. So each test is passed this rich struct with lots of methods on it. So there we go. We import testing. And let's call, what do we do? We've got bark. Yeah, that's called bark. So bark. Foo. Did it have any arguments? It had none. That doesn't matter. Why can't I? Function bark. Oh, it's for the dog. It's for the dog. Okay. So let's create, the animal. So A equals animal, except it was called dog, was it? Yeah, okay. Let's fill it with some stuff. So name, we change that to an int. And whatever, there's a string. So we want to see if A dot, why doesn't that work? Got the dog. Okay, let's attach that to the dog. Undeclared name dog. Oh, I'm in the wrong class, that's why. Okay. In the wrong file. Okay, dog has the bark method. So I should be able to, but not here. Dog test. Bark. Not working. Maybe because I shouldn't use, So it's very easy to sort of do PHP things, like putting a parentheses there. So if a bark equals boo, or it's unequal to boo, then there's no, so if you use PHP unit, you've got the assert equals this, so greater than that. In Go, you don't have that by default. You can include a package with assertions in it. Instead, you can do this. So you just have an if statement. If it's unequal to boo, we have an error, foo, bark, or was not equal to boo. So how do we run the test? So I can say go test. Not sure if that's going to work. There's a weird convention. If you do // that means run all the tests. And you can see it, it ran all the tests and it failed one of them. Let's just run that specific test though, because it's getting confused because I messed up the other one. So let's run the K9 tests. So we've got the failure and we've got was not equal to BPP. So obviously you can write big test suites like that if you want. Like PHP unit, it has to start test. Otherwise it says no test to run. I personally use an assertion library. So testify. Okay, I've got no internet, so that's not going to work. But with testify, I don't need to demonstrate it. So in that you can just say require. Oh, maybe it does work actually. Maybe I've already got it cached somewhere. So require equals t, foo, a dot bark or whatever. So you can imagine how that would scale if you're writing tests. You can also write different types of tests. You can write integration tests, end-to-end tests. You can probably write gherkin tests if you like. So there's a huge ecosystem of packages with Go. You can do pretty much anything you could think of with PHP, apart from have colorful var dumpers, which is sad. So that's pretty much it. Just one last thing. One of the first things I noticed when I did Go is just that they are terrible at naming things, and it's just like it's a badge of honor. So this is completely normal idiomatic Go code. It's even recommended to have as short names as possible, except where it doesn't make sense because nobody would understand what it means intuitively. So unless you've got some huge, it's like maths, right? If you ever looked at a formula in maths and it uses all these letters and the mathematicians know what they are, you don't, and it's just really intimidating. And that's a bit like looking at Go code sometimes if you're a PHP developer. So whether that's something that you're accustomed to, and then you start doing this in PHP as well, I don't know. But they're kind of incompatible in the coding cultures, I think, and the attitudes towards like clean code. I don't think they read Uncle Bob. So why should you use Go? So you don't have to use Go. If you're doing Microservices, you can do Microservices in PHP. You can have long-running processes in PHP. So that one of the big advantages of using Go is that you just deploy the binary. The binary is the web server, and your binary can serve many requests, and it can do all sorts of stuff concurrently because Go is very good at concurrency. So Go is your web server, right? But you can do that in PHP as well. If you use an async libraries like React or PHP, you can run a HTTP server and you can serve lots of requests, although not exactly concurrently, but pretty much concurrently. It's about as concurrent as Node.js, basically. So you don't have to, but it is faster. It is you're gonna have less dependencies on production, and it's fun. You know, if you've never ventured out into doing into a compiled language, it's an easy thing to start with, and you can produce different kinds of programs. You do different kinds of coding if you're doing Go, so it really opens your horizons. Right? You can get different jobs. Right. So that's pretty much it. If you've got any questions, yeah, I'll be going to the pub. Or indeed any questions about PHP potential factor or anything else. Yeah. So I hope that wasn't too boring. Thanks.
Are you taking questions now? Or?
Yeah, take questions. Yeah.
When you were including like the local modules, you had PHP Southwest. Was it use PHP Southwest?
Yeah.
Or PHPSW / how did you know it was PHPSW?
Because at the beginning I did Go mod and it PHPSW.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the name of your module. If you like. Yeah.
You had an append method for the list.
Yeah.
And it was sort of variable name equals append and then you put the variable in. Is that creating a new instance of it? As in, if I had done B equals append A, and then the things you're appending afterwards, would that make basically two lists?
I don't think so. So I think it's just you would append it. Don't quote me on this, but
Okay.
yeah, I think it would just append it to the memory location. So the memory location would be resized, and I might be talking complete bullshit. But I think the memory location would be resized, and it would just add to it. So it won't copy. I mean, it wouldn't be very efficient if it did that.
It seemed odd that it was something equals and then the new things rather than append and then the object.
Yeah, well, lists are pointers actually.
Okay.
So the list it's not.
It seemed odd to be returning something.
As I understand it, it's a bit of both. So a list has got a length and a capacity. So if you append to a list and it's got capacity for an additional item, it happens in place in memory.
Yeah.
But if it has to extend the capacity, then it will assign it to a new list.
So that's why it's returning something.
Yeah.
So if you were to put if you put in a variable of 1 and then you return another 1, it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would.
You could end up losing something
Okay.
if you didn't pass it the same thing.
Okay. It seems an odd way of writing it, but I suppose that's just because I'm coming from a different angle.
Yeah.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah, it is odd, and I have lots of bugs in my programs. So it's probably one of the reasons.
Okay, that's up.
Cool. Any other questions?
Is there a way around the whole lowercase, uppercase with private? That's
Just how it works.
yeah.
This is part of the culture shock. You're like, why did you do it like this? And there's lots of things that go. You're like, come on. You thought it was cool. It isn't.
It's a bit like the underscores and double underscores protected private that they made a part of the language.
Yeah. I mean, the whole philosophy of Go is minimal and efficient and quick, which doesn't scale to, this enterprise back, in PHP we copied a lot from Java, and this clean code concept where everything's got to be very verbose and maintainable, and it's got to be lots of stuff everywhere. And Go is kind of the opposite, it must be minimal. So, but you don't have to I use this in receivers, and that's probably a very bad thing to do. But it saves me having to wonder which variable is the receiver, and if somebody decided to call a variable WCT, I don't have to spend, you just hover over it, so you what the type is, but you save yourself that hassle if you just call it, what it is, like a token or something. So. Cool.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
With the empty values, so for example, an empty string or 0 for an int,
Yeah.
is there a way of telling whether it was explicitly set to one of those values? Right.
No.
Is there any way around that?
Use a pointer.
Use a pointer.
So this is horrible. So if you, it's especially horrible if you have to write something that does have this concept, like MySQL. If you're going to a nullable table in MySQL, you have to use pointers, and then it becomes very unintuitive because you can't just create a string pointer. You have to create the value first, and then you have to give a reference to that value to whatever's receiving it. So it becomes very, I'd say, annoying actually, not having union types for a start, because that, if you had a union type, that it could be null or string. Maybe this is something they're doing in Go in the future. I don't know. They've just introduced generics. But yeah, this is probably one of the things I hate the most about Go is this. Yeah, there's no way to have this nullable field, if you like.
Are you able to store that complexity away somewhere?
Yes, you can create a struct, for example, with the value, and then if the value is set or not. So it's kind of a nullable, you can call it, like a nullable string or a nullable user or something like that.
So you effectively have to say, is this value set?
Yeah, you have to store the fact if it's set or not and an empty value, but it might be empty on purpose. Yeah, so that's why you need it.
Cool. Thank you very much.